This is Omar Khalid, but you're watching a live transmission following the budget speech by the Finance Minister, Mr. Aurangzeb. The budget has been presented for the fiscal year 2025-2026. The finance bill has also that has been presented. In fact, the budget speech is the presentation of this finance bill for the next year. Important things include the total outlay of the budget, which is 17,573 trillion rupees, which is a decrease of 6.9% from the last budget. The GDP growth rate in the year 2025-2026 is estimated at 4.2%. Budget deficit is estimated at 0.9%. Primary surplus is going to be 2.4% of the GDP. There are the budgets that have been allocated for different sectors: sports, education, and of course there is certain relief that has been given to the salaried classes, and there are certain taxes that have been imposed, certain revisions that have been made as far as the whole tax outlay is concerned. We've been joined by three guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one to discuss more on that. I'm not here just to talk about the budget by myself. Eshal, Arooj, economic analyst, joins us in the studio. Eshal, thank you very much to have joined us. Our very dear Dr. Khalid, Waleed, energy expert, joins us as well. And of course, Hassan Gillani, our correspondent, also joins us, who has been very ably listening to the entire budget speech very diligently. So let's begin with you, Hassan. What are the important points, if we were to ask you what was the crux of today's budget speech? What was it?
Well, as you know, Omar, that we have not been able to achieve the target that we had set for the GDP in the last 1 year for the current fiscal year. And the reason mainly has been the slow growth in the agriculture sector and the slow growth in the large manufacturing sector, which is the two main drivers of growth, of course. This time, we have seen that the government has announced certain incentives, both for the industry sector and for the agriculture sector too. No new tax has been imposed on fertilizer and on pesticides. On the energy side, we have seen that the government has drastically reduced the price of energy. And the proposal is that the price of energy for the industrial sector should be reduced to the lowest in the region, which of course is going to further promote the industrial activity and production of industrial goods in Pakistan. So this time we are seeing that the target that has been set for 4.2 of the GDP target for this fiscal year, the upcoming fiscal year, is not a very ambitious target, provided that we do the needful in terms of promoting and injecting a fresh breath into our agriculture sector and our energy sector, because LSM and agriculture are the two main drivers of the GDP. The climate change, of course, has been a very important factor which slowed down Pakistan's agriculture sector. The growth, which was projected to be about 2%, was less than 1%, approximately 0.56% or something. So for climate change, of course, is something that needs to be taken care of. For this regard, we have been told that about $40 billion are to be provided by the IFIs in the next 10 years. IMF has readily provided $1.4 billion to Pakistan for climate resilience. So in terms of climate funding, we are getting the requirement of assistance. If that happens, and if that is made possible uninterruptedly, we can hope that this target of 4.2 for the next fiscal year is going to be achievable.
The growth rate, the GDP growth rate. Okay, let's talk about the energy sector reforms. And Khalid, who better to ask this question than to you? Industrial tariffs have been reduced by over 31%. Rupees 3 trillion saved via IPP regeneration. This is what has been announced. Closure of inefficient furnace oil plants has also led to a certain relief for the government. And NTDC has been restructured. 3 discos privatization has been advanced. How do you see these measures, and how will these bode as far as not only the restructuring of the energy sector is concerned, but also relief for the masses in Pakistan?
Well, I am a very staunch advocate that economy and energy should go hand in hand. We have done policy planning in silos in past. Now it is coming together and we have this integrated planning. What I would be interested seeing implemented would be reforms in NTDC, reforms in transmission and distribution sector, distribution companies privatization, plus the competitive market that is also planned. Another thing that is hallmark of this speech was that the generation capacity expansion plan (IGSAP) now it is more economics oriented, which means that we have set aside those expensive power plants that were planned to come into Pakistan's energy mix, because we already have installed capacity, excess installed capacity. So we are not going towards those expensive plants. Third thing that is linked to energy sector, and that might be a negative side, that is GST on solar panels.
Imported solar panels.
Imported solar panel that will promote Pakistan's indigenization drive to manufacture indigenous solar
more
panels.
adherence towards the local sector.
But still, it will affect for the short period of time the community-led solar boom in Pakistan.
Okay.
Another positive thing that happened in this budget was the climate financing linked to renewable energy. Petroleum development levy that might have some negative impacts in short term, but in medium to long term it will have positive impacts, because now we have
5% on petrol and high speed diesel, which is going to be increased by ₹5 in the year 2026, 2027.
Effectively, we have a carbon tax, and recycling of that carbon tax would be very important. Maybe one very effective thing to do is maybe park that revenue collected through PDL in Pakistan Climate Change Fund, and that can finance Pakistan's transition towards renewable energy and adoption of electric vehicles. So for me, first time climate and energy oriented budget, that is good to notice and good.
All right, Eshal, the inflation rate is estimated at 7.5%. The GDP growth rate, as Hassan also pointed out, is at 4.2% estimate. Budget deficit 0.9%. Primary surplus is going to be 2.4% of the GDP. How do you see these figures, and from an economist's point of view, what do they foresee?
So the overall budget and these figures also seem sustainable. They are optimistic, but not completely unrealistic. Basically, when we talk about the IMF program, there are a lot of conditionalities that were given in that. So they have taken away, they've cut down the outlay by almost 2 trillion, which is another sort of an outcome of the IMF conditionality. They are putting on austerity measures, and they are taking away subsidies from certain sectors. They are getting away from supplementary grants. So this is going to affect the budget deficit or the fiscal deficit side. On the other side, they are increasing the budget that PSDP will have in the next year. That is
4,224 billion.
Yeah. So that is going to impact the people of Pakistan, because it's going to create employment, and that is going to translate into more jobs and more income for people, which is going to translate into higher consumer demand. And that is seen as a growth stimulus right now as well, because eventually it would lead to GDP growth, although there is going to be an inflationary hike if this is the route it takes. But at the same time, there's going to be GDP growth, and with the expansion of the tax net.
You talk of inflationary hike, will it surpass 7.5% in your point of view?
It all depends on how the tax base turns out to be. If it is increasing and people who are evading tax actually start to pay it, then it is possible that there would be a disinflation, which would be an inflation, but at a slower rate.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Hassan, let's talk about the FBR and tax. This is something that everybody is thinking of right now. How much tax are we going to pay? I mean, the salaried class, there has been a certain outlay given and certain relief that has been also given by the government. Let's see how much that relief translates into per month reduction or cut as far as the salaries are concerned. Nevertheless, the FBR revenues are estimated at 14,131 billion rupees. The provincial allocation is going to be 8,206 billion rupees as well. The FBR tax to GDP ratio, as per the finance minister, is going to increase to 10.3%. This is what he says, from 8.8% in the previous fiscal year. How do you see these?
That's a very positive development, Omar, because of course our tax to GDP ratio going up is auguring well for overall improvement of Pakistan's economy. But the fact remains that still, even if we are sort of hovering around 10 point something, it is not a very substantial increase, because if you look at the countries that we have always been looking at with envy, countries like the developed countries, the Scandinavian countries, their tax to GDP ratio is about 30 to 40%. Ours still is hovering around 9, 10, but this is a good omen, yes, that there has been some improvement, at least some increase. So at least we are on that path, on that trajectory that leads us towards a better point where we can see that, okay, now our tax to GDP ratio is on the rise. Another very good thing that has happened in this budget speech that we have heard is the proposal that there's going to be now no segregation of non-filer and filer category. Now, you know, the big businesses, the big
I think that was long awaited. That was a decision that was long awaited.
Absolutely. So now there's no such thing as non-filer. The non-filer, even if he or she is withdrawing money from his account or from anywhere, this is going to be a certain percentage of charges that he or she has to pay. And then, of course, all the big business deals or the transactions that are running in lakhs and millions are only to be done by those who are filers. They now have to declare their assets. Now they have to declare their income, their savings, or whatever they have. So there's no such thing as non-filer. Now that, of course, is also going to be helping towards further revamping Pakistan's system of taxation and increasing the collection of taxes from those who have been earning a lot but have not been paying taxes.
All right, but Khalid, Waleed, I'd like to understand: are all of these proposals for the ending of the differentiation between filers and non-filers, the new classification system that is going to come into effect? How easily implementable could this be once everything is digitized?
Well, you answered it really well, that once everything is digitized. So we need to take it in a parallel way. One, that we need to digitize the tax processes. Second, we need to digitize our informal economy as well. So that needs to go hand in hand, maybe linking Nadra's network to tax network. One important thing that I heard in the speech was that FBR is going to provide ensuring the security and reliability of the data and transparency of it to researchers and academic institutions, so that there is more research on the data, what is the structure of it, what
Eshal is all ears
because
because she is going to get all that data.
Scale of it. So that would be a good thing to have, so that we can make tax policies more complementary to the economic growth. One thing I always say, that there is a Laffer curve in economics that says that when tax rate increases, tax revenue increases for certain amount of time. After that rate, that point of tax rate, the tax revenue started to decline. So we need to take care of that as well. So my take would be digital economy, informal transition from informal economy to formal economy, and then I think digitization of rural economy and agriculture sector, that would be very important if we want to increase the tax net. And so highlight of the speech again was the introduction of simplified version of tax form. That would be a very good thing to see, that what is the simplicity of it, particularly for those who are retail side, are associated with agriculture sector. So that would be a good thing to have, at least for me. I do not have to have a lawyer for the tax.
We have to go to the Senate session that is going on live. The finance minister is arrived there. We are in live transmission on TTV. Well, I'm Omar Khalid, and we have with us our three guests with whom we've been talking during the entire course of the transmission: Eshal, Arooj, economic analyst; Waqar, Dr. Khalid Waleed Saab, energy expert; and Hassan Gillani, our correspondent from PTV World. I'll come to you, Eshal. Of course, now it has been presented, the finance bill has been presented in the Senate. Now, after a break, they'll start discussions on different clauses and then approve the different clauses as well. I'd like to talk a little bit about the different budgets. The education budget, that is of 9.8 billion, the agri financing, that is of 2,066 billion. Then, of course, the sports budget also has been allocated of 17.8 billion. How should these budgets be streamlined in order for these sectors to benefit the most?
So, when we talk about the education sector itself, it is a huge sector which affects a lot of people. We have a huge population, and there is a lot of children who are out of school right now. So, allocating such a big budget to education sector, if it is perfectly implemented and if it is perfectly given in the right manner, then eventually this is going to translate into better human capital in the future, which is going to translate into better economic growth, better GDP, and overall the dynamics of the country are going to transform. When we talk about the agri sector, we see that in the last year, it didn't perform really well. Our three major crops saw a downfall. Apart from that, our livestock, although saw a hike in its numbers. So, giving such an incentive or a budget
Like 10% first loss risk coverage to small farmers, I think this is a good incentive. National seed policy has also been announced.
Exactly. So, this is going to help them come out of the problems they were facing
and
already.
Khalid also pointed out that fertilizer and pesticides, there will be no tax.
Exactly, there is no tax, and then since this the tax on solar panels has increased, imported solar panels, and once they are domestically produced, it is also going to help the small scale farmers. Yeah.
All right. Khalid, Waleed, how is this budget going to affect the SME sector?
Well, there were good measures on SME sector, particularly when you see it in context with economic survey of Pakistan, which shows that large-scale manufacturing showed very low growth, but the SME sector, the small manufacturing industry, they show a substantial, significant amount of growth. So, what we need to do is we need to bring more entrepreneurship, innovation to it, so that we can increase exports from it. I'll link it with Eshal's point that Pakistan's demographic dividend, it should be transferred towards the innovation and entrepreneurial side of it, so that more and more youth will come towards the SME sector, and government provide regulatory measures and facilitation to this sector, so that it can be utilized for increasing the exports and export diversification. That is very important, because Pakistan's large scale manufacturing, it focuses on traditional exports, but small scale or small and medium scale enterprises, they can diversify the exporting potential of Pakistan, and they can also reach out towards diversified market, particularly in Africa and North America and European countries. So that would be very important for Pakistan's export led growth as well.
All right. Hassan, there was also a mention of the SOEs and downsizing of around 10 projects, 6 divisions. The minister are going to be merged into 3. 45 departments are being merged as well. How do you see this downsizing, and how much could this affect our economy in the positive manner in the next year?
It's very essential, Omar, because as mentioned by the finance minister, that these white elephants are taking a very heavy toll on the national economy and causing the national economy loss of billions of rupees every year. So they have lined up certain SOEs, which includes discos. Discos are to be privatized and to be run by professional boards to streamline their working, and similarly Pakistan International Airlines is set to be privatized. It had to happen in the current fiscal, it couldn't happen because of certain reasons, but now it is to be again privatized, and this is basically aimed at not just disentangling the government from certain functionaries of certain SOEs, but also making sure that the economy is run by the private sector. Private sector becomes the real driver of the national economy, and government also is also involved in such a way that it provides the framework, the regulation, and the entire ecosystem. That's how the government intends to change the DNA of the economy. And also it's very important to mention, Umar, that despite all the odds and despite all the challenges, the government has increased by about 25% the allocation for the Benazir income support program.
Increased by 716 billion.
Absolutely, more than 700 billion. So this is something that has been benefiting about 90 lakh households in the current fiscal year. So this allocation, this major increase in the allocation certainly is a very welcome news for those families who are the the depressed section of the society. So despite all the odds, because of course, as you know, we are at the crossroads. We aren't, passing through a very conducive time. We are facing a very difficult time. But despite that, the government has allocated more than 700 billion rupees for the Energy Income Support Program. So huge chunk of relief for the people whom life has put on hard times.
All right, Eshal, the minister has announced that companies selling products through digital sources are to pay 5% of tax. They also say that there is going to be new law over digital presence that is going to be announced or put into effect very soon. How do you see that, and how is it going to affect those who are working online and the B2B transactions that are also happening?
So this digitalization bit has been happening for the past year, where it started with person-to-person payments, then it went on to government-to-person payments, and now eventually it is going to merchant payments. So for merchant payments, it's very simple. They're just QR codes being placed on tier 2 and tier 3 merchants, and the payments are going to be digitalized through that means. It is, number one, it's going to help to formalize the informal activity that is happening, and second is going to help to increase the tax base. Now the next step is to digitalize the entire supply chain, where the talk comes to B2B businesses. Now we know that there is a huge transactions that happen from business to business, be it any sector at all. So if they are giving this incentive that a lesser tax is being paid if the payments are through digital means, it is eventually going to affect the tax base, and it is going to be a sustainable way of increasing the tax net overall.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Khalid, some sectoral incentives have been given, especially in the agri sector. Clean collateral-free agri loans for 750,000 small farmers, incentives for local cultivation of cotton, for the SMEs that we talked about, 641 billion financing to 262,000 enterprises, and of course in the IT, the minister announced exports were up 21.2% to 3.1 billion, but the target was 25 billion US dollars in 5 years' time. Then if you come a little bit to the environmental sector, Green Sukuk has been launched with 30 billion rupees that have been raised, and carbon levy has also been introduced. You've talked about that, and EV incentives have been added. How do you see these measures? You know, measures are excellent, but the very important and primordial thing is how they are going to be implemented. What's your take on all of this?
You're very right that it is a right step towards right direction, that particularly when you see it in a context of Pakistan's National Economic Transformation Plan, the Udan Pakistan, the 5 E's of it, and then the EFF and the Resilience and Sustainability Facility by IMF. So it is a step towards integrated planning, which has agriculture side of it, which has e-commerce side of it, which has small and industrial development as well, and then it has climate risk mitigation as well. So this integrated planning will be a futuristic thing, holistic, whole of a society thing. One thing that we need to take care is that how we are trickling these benefits or these policy measures towards the microeconomic side, so that the microeconomic prosperity that can be ensured. In that way, maybe we can have effective implementation. You are right that in documentation, in document, these are all good measures, futuristic measures, but when it comes towards implementation side of it, but still we have seen that this government and the previous caretaker setup, they have followed economic discipline, they have sacrificed their political discretion. So we are hopeful that this direction will continue, and finance minister's statement that the private sector should lead the economy and the market-driven economy should be the focus of it, will be the mantra.
Okay, the market-driven economy is something that's important for a country such as Pakistan. Climate finance is something that you talked about in the very beginning of our conversation in this transmission. The minister talked about the partnership with the World Bank, with the IFC. He said for 40 billion over 10 years. Over 10 years, and of course,
and
1/3 is climate focused.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Then he talked about the 1.4 billion that was secured under the IMF. He talked about Recharge Pakistan program as well, 77 million US dollars for flood resilience under that as well. But to add to that, another important sector that he talked about was the mining sector, and he talked about Recodic. Would you like to highlight some of the aspects that the minister highlighted? As far as Recodic is concerned, he talked about 75 billion US dollars that are going to be generated over 37 years, and 41,500 jobs are going to be created.
Now, this is a sector, Omar, that has been largely lying untapped over the years, and Recodic is something that of course needs to be tapped, needs to be exploited, and for this exactly we have recently had this International Minerals Conference in Islamabad, where we invited experts and investors and international company representatives from all over Pakistan, so that they could come here and we could showcase the kind of potential that we have in Recodic. But of course it is something that needs time, it needs sustained efforts, it needs long-term planning, it needs sustainability of efforts. So yes, there lies of course a lot of potential in Recodic, but that of course requires not just efforts on the part of the government of Pakistan, but also concerted efforts on those who have expertise in this sector.
All right. Thank you very much to all three of my guests. We're a bit short of time. Hassan Gillani, Dr. Khalid, Waleed and Eshal Arooj to have joined us in the studios, to have been so patient with us to highlight different aspects of this budget. Ladies and gentlemen, the budget 2025 has been announced by the Federal Minister for Finance, and of course he is also presented in the Senate. Let's see what the next couple of days are going to board as far as the discussions on this budget is concerned. Khalid, Allah Hafiz.